right, well, good day. My name is Brikenda. I'm the Director of Operations and Strategic Projects here at Omniair Consortium. Before we get started, I have just one reminder. Questions are encouraged. We will have time for Q&A near the end of the presentation. However, you may submit questions in the Q&A box as they come to mind. You don't have to wait until the end. I'm looking to see who is in our box right now in the chat box. I see quite a few familiar names on the attendee screen, but for those who we have not met, Omniair is a leading industry association promoting interoperability and certification for connected vehicles, ITS, and transportation payment systems. Our membership includes, as I just said, connected vehicle, intelligent transportation systems and road technology, device manufacturers, ITS deployers, testing laboratories, and other stakeholders, all promoting the proliferation of certified interoperable devices. For nearly a decade, we have provided the opportunity for members to work collaboratively to develop and determine the requirements for national certification programs. Our nearly 100 members have the opportunity to shape the future of ITS and IoT technologies and to work with industry leaders and transportation professionals to accelerate their interoperability. Well, today is very exciting. We are pleased to have not one, but three leading industry experts with us. Frank, Nick, and Randy, please join me on the screen right now. While we're waiting for them to join us, I want to tell you a little bit about each of them. We'll start with Frank Perry, our Senior Technical Principal, Connected and Automated Vehicles at WSP. Frank Perry has 30 years of program management and systems engineering experience, including 20 years deploying, integrating, testing, and operating connected vehicle systems. Mr. Perry led the deployment, integration, testing, and operations of the original U.S. Department of Transportation CV test bed in Michigan, CV device interoperability testing for the U.S. DOT Safety Pilot Model Deployment Project, led the deployment, integration, testing, and operations of the Minnesota DOT Smart Corridor, and systems verification for Smart Columbus Connected Vehicle Environment. He is currently the PM for the CV Pool Fund Study, Connected Intersection Project, and the CV-PFS Connected Intersection Message Monitoring System Project. Mr. Perry is a CV subject matter expert in several other projects for the Michigan DOT, Ohio DOT, and Maricopa County, Arizona, 2004, and is an executive member of Omniair Consortium Board of Directors. Next, we have Nick Hegemeyer, who is the Managing Director of Infrastructure at Drive Ohio. Nick Hegemeyer is currently the Managing Director of Infrastructure for Drive Ohio, a center formed within Ohio DOT to focus on smart mobility. His current duties include the development of standards for connected and automated vehicles to be deployed in the state. He is currently involved in many national CAV efforts, including leading the AV Pooled Fund Study, and is a board member for the ITS Midwest, as well as here at Omniair Consortium. He received his degree in electrical engineering from The Ohio State University and has over 22 years of intelligent transportation system experience. Last but not least, we have our very own Randy Roebuck, who is our Senior Vice President of Engineering and Technology Programs. Randy has over 35 years experience in wireless communications for connected vehicle and RFID tolling. In his current role, Randy is leading the Technology and Certification Services Division here at Omniair. He has been involved in industry standards ranging from covering both regulatory and safety and worked on US DOT research testing activities. Randy is a professional engineer and has held multiple engineering, manufacturing, marketing, sales, and program management positions within Texas Instruments, Federal Signal, and 3M. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and a Master's in Business Administration. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Randy to get us started. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you very much, Brikenda. And let's share. Do I have control of the screen or you do? Okay. Thank you very much. I lead the technical activities at Omniair. C-V2X device certification is a foundation as a deployment stepping stone. Brikenda gave an insight to what Omniair does. Our job is to promote conformance and interoperability. We do it through independent third-party testing. We're trying to ensure devices conform to the standards that are interoperable, enabling trusted communications. OmniAir has a global presence. We have many MO affiliations, such as ITS Taiwan, which we held a Plug Fest last fall at. We have a ITS of Korea, which we hope to plan a Plug Fest next year for. We've held Plug Fest in Canada. We do work with a 5GAA. And if you want to get involved, we have many working groups in the tolling and the connected vehicle area for everyone to get involved. Many people are asking, where do you find our documents? How do you find all the stuff? Our webs go to our website. You can enter in the members access, and you can, at the top left, you can see our certification policy documents, which you can get access to. Also in the members only portal, you can get the LTE test specifications that make up the certification. These are only approved documents by the board that's put up in this location. We do have other documents are in progress, which you can find in our SharePoint sites. So we do try to cover and give all the information to the folks. Device certification needs. This is what this webinar is all about. The US DOT deployment plan and the 3 recent acceleration grants, Arizona, Texas, Utah, they're all requiring certified devices for conformance and interoperability. We're here to tell you what are certified devices, how to do it, and we do have different mechanisms such as technology readiness. We hold Plug Fest twice a year. We do applications. We do have Frank and Nick online that's going to tell you, hey, what does this mean to the implementers and deployment? This C-V2X Trusted Communications is a very cooperative industry activities, and that's the way it needs to be in order to pull off this successfully. The US DOT put out its first deployment plan. We're waiting on their updates here shortly. They are highlighting our issue, OBU, and aftermarket safety device usage, and they are focusing on system interoperability and these acceleration pilots. So everything is compatible across the board, and their so-called interoperability at all the way up through the system level and between pilots. And hopefully they'll act as a guidelines for everybody to follow. The automotive OEMs, they are defining OBUs. There is an OBU specification activity that's going to be started here shortly. And there's an aftermarket safety standard being worked, and OmniAir is parallel developing the test specifications and their certification. 5GAA, they're a marketing trade association. They produce the United States Day 1 deployment guide that calls out OmniAir and our other folks. SAE is an SDO developing standards and requirements. IT is developing the infrastructure standards such as CTI 4001 for our issues. You can see OmniAir. This is our particular role where we're a technical trade organization developing conformance, interoperability, certification scopes, and putting it to practice. As CMS manager, they're the Security Certificate and Policy Administrator of SCMS, and they require device certification to issue certificates. And then we do work with all the device manufacturers, test equipment folks to bring this to reality. We, at the end of our certification process, this is the end goal. We produce a certification findings. We cover the different aspects, make sure everything is met from regulatory, safety, to environmental, to V2X conformance. Pilots can basically ensure that the devices are working. I call it V2X 101, Electronics 101, so they can focus on its implementations in their system and applications. This particular slide covers the communications from conformance to interoperability. You can see the top bullet where the device interoperability is expected to be checked through OmniAir, and the system interoperability through the acceleration grants. Down at the second to last bullet, V2X functionality and conformance is what we're all about, which is the first component of it. Then we are working getting into device interoperability itself. Basically, what is a certified device and what is validation? This is the definition that we've all hard to work for. This kind of shows its meaning, and we do it at the component level. We just certified our first module. There are two types of modules. One, a radio module, which literally is V2X global. And then there's the second type where they add the V2X functionality, such the 1609, the stack and the security and the messages services on top of it that can be defined as a module. And then we go into OBUs, and a lot of these that we've certified in the past do act like the light AVD, which is being defined in the SAE standard. We also certifying RSUs. Then we do have a scope to check the V2X communication peripheral pipe, which is the connection from the traffic signal controller in the V2X hub to the RSU. Our communication certification is based on specifications. We're heavily involved in the standards works to know what they're creating, understand them, so we can produce a test specification that covers the key items of it. On the right-hand side, you can see the specifications, description, and what OmniAir test specification does cover that. We go everything from the radio PHY layer, which is our 759 and 761, down to the radio protocol, through the message dictionary, to the security SCMS processing, networking services, down into the device functionality, such as OBUs and RSUs. If you want to know about OmniAir, whether you're a member or not a member, we have created the document 753, which is a certification scope. It covers basically all the components, how they all fit together, all the definitions. This is the one spot that agencies and folks can go to, and it also defines what are release scopes, what release 1, what release 2 means. And this is both for connected vehicle and tolling. There's also a second document that's on our public access website. There is a QR code there. It will take you directly to this, where we list all the test specifications or the test cases for the V2X that goes in, which is our document 755A. This shows the release 1. This is up on our website. You can see on the left-hand side, these are all the test specifications that makes up an OBU. On the right side are all the test specifications and the elements that make up an RSU. This is also in document 753. One of the V2X, I believe, is on the second to last page, and on the last page is our tolling scopes. or vice versa. Certification services. This is the heart of Omniair. We work with all these folks. We make sure everybody knows how to test, what to test. It's been an industry collaboration where our folks, members, look at the standards, develop the requirements. Everybody agrees to them. Then we put them into practice. We go through audits for the test equipment, the test laboratory, and field site, so they know they know how to use them, so they can offer those services to their clients, the devices, produce the testing, produce a test report. We review the test report, make sure everything is met, and we move on. We do have a few items in work, such as our C-V2X applications, our aftermarket safety, our transportation sensors, and our C-V2X tolling. One of the keys to ours and one of our public events is our C-V2X technology readiness testing, such as we call Plug Fest. We hold them twice a year. You can see on the left-hand side that we started in the fall of 2017, and our next Plug Fest is coming up in San Diego, California this fall. And this is a place that come to learn about us, even when you're just starting. Bring your devices, see what it's all about. It will help your development, accelerate your development. Actually, you find out what you need to go work on. Hopefully you come from a Plug Fest, one or two of them, feel ready for certification, go through it, so you can slide right through it. Our certification process, it all starts with the application agreement. Go to our website, fill it out. Once you fill it out, send us your data sheet and user manual and capabilities of the device or product. We'll develop a test plan. We'll come to agreement on what that test plan should be. You get with the test laboratory. Then we have a kickoff meeting. Everybody agrees to the testing. Devices are sent. They're tested. And then a test report is reviewed. And then we grant certification. Here's the screens from our website for website submission. You can go to our services. It'll show tolling, connected vehicle, accredited labs, and test equipment. Click on the spot, and it will go to its application form. You fill it out. You hit next. There's an agreement there. You sign. Then that sends us an email that you've submitted for an application agreement. Then please send us your data sheet and user manual so we can grant a test plan. And per our 722 policy, we want certification should be able to be accomplished within a 6-month active testing duration. If you're on your way and we see that things are working through and in that, we can extend that. But we just don't want folks to apply for an application, then 2 or 3 later, they decide that, hey, they are ready now. Really, the application should be submitted close to when you're ready, and we can make sure that it efficiently goes through the test laboratories, the process, and that, and meet your customer needs. This slide shows an example of all the test cases. You can see there's 3 small columns in the middle there. One is for OBUs, one for our issues, and one for modules that have a coding in there, such as R for required, O for optional, C for conditional. And we go in and look at your specs, see which capabilities you have, make sure that everything is in order for our release scopes, and move forward. You do see the elements of the radio layer, the security, the network services, then the BSMs for an OBU requirement and the RSU. We have a Plugfest coming up. We just finished a Plugfest in May at M-City. Our next Plugfest will be in San Diego, October 28th through November 1st. The registration is open. You can go to the QR code. This particular Plugfest, we're going to be focusing on bench conformance and device interoperability with the 1609.2 SEMS process. We'd like to see the J2735 2024 message set, and also the J3161 that was just recently published that has the SLSS radio profile moving forward. And these are the kind of requirements that the acceleration grants are moving forward in. So thank you very much, and put your questions in the chat box, and I will stop sharing the screen and for the next speaker.
Thank you so much for sharing, Randy. Yes, actually the chat box is turned off, so if you have any questions, go ahead and type those in the Q&A box. Frank, I will go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And all right, well, thanks, Rakinda. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. So, as Rakinda mentioned, I'm Frank Perry. I'm a Connected Automated Vehicle Senior Technical Principal here at WSP, and I'll be talking through device certification from a system integrator perspective. But first, I just wanted to take a couple minutes and introduce everybody to WSP. They didn't know who we are. And some of our connected vehicle experience. So we have a vast amount of connected vehicle experience, both in deployments. So everything in the system engineering, as well as the standards development. So we design, install, integrate V2X roadside infrastructure and collaborate with vendors and telecommunication specialists. We do have telecommunication expertise on staff, and we can support the deployment of broadband infrastructure as well as the integration and configuration. We have messaging and data integration capabilities to support V2I applications, such as traffic signal-based messaging and integration with transit and other back office services and applications. We also manage the large volumes of V2X data and translate that data into usable information for transportation management centers, as well as for agency-specific applications. In general, we deploy emerging technologies with performance management tracking. This helps ensure that equipment operates as planned and can be expanded as needed. So this map shows some of our current and past connected vehicle projects that we have been involved in. Two projects that are not listed on this map right now that are our most recent wins is Maricopa County and the Utah V2X Accelerator grants. So we are really excited about that and look forward to getting those projects kicked off. So I want to talk a little bit about how the importance of device certification from our perspective. Certification promotes several attributes. Here we've got interoperability, so devices from different manufacturers can communicate and work together effectively and essentially interchangeably. Rigorous independent testing provides confidence in the quality and reliability of the devices, and certification verifies performance with relative standard specifications that are crucial for communication and interoperability, right? That's kind of the crux of the certification, right? Is to make sure these devices meet industry standards and specifications. From a security perspective, certification ensures that device can securely transmit and receive messages while mitigating cyber threats and vulnerabilities. And then finally, V2X devices must meet FCC regulatory requirements before OmniAir certification is granted. So again, even if the device meets all the industry standards, they still have to meet the FCC conformance requirements before certification granted. So some of the benefits, in our view, this kind of levels the playing field, meaning the agencies don't need to be experts in V2X standards or specifications. As long as they get a certified device, the device will have, met those standards and specifications. Certification also helps evaluate standards really before deployment. So as OmniAir and the test labs are developing their certification, their testing specifications and procedures, if any questions come up about specific standards or implementation of those standards, well, OmniAir has a direct line of communication to all the relevant SDOs. They can reach out, get answers, apply that to the testing, and then that feedback can also go into the standards to help clarify, clarify things. It also promotes consistent operation across device manufacturers. So there's really kind of three focus areas the way I see it. So first of all, there's the radio. So this is the 3GPP release 1415, as well as SAE 3161 series. The message broadcast functionality. So from an RSU, RSUs are tested against CTI 4001, as well as SAE 2735, J2945 series, as well as the IEEE 1609 series of standards. And then from a configuration and management standpoint, RSUs are tested against NTCIP 1218. So you can see, device certification really focuses on interoperability of the devices so that system operators can focus on interoperability between systems. So here's a really high-level overview of the deployment process. And yeah, there's other steps in the process here, but I wanted to kind of show these 7 and then highlight where device certification kind of falls in. So, the way we see it, device certification affects the system requirements, the procurement of devices, bench testing, field testing, and then operations and maintenance. So we'll talk about each one of these now independently. So I'm sure everybody knows, right, a system requirements document specifies essential device and system attributes and functionality. So simply stating that a device needs to be, whether it's an RSU or an OVU, that the device needs to be OmniAir certified in the requirements document, then kind of pulls in all of those industry standards that certification brings with it. So you don't have to list every single attribute or every single function in detail. All you have to do is say the device needs to be OmniAir certified. Similar with procurement documentation. So, again, procurement docs typically contain device attribute and the functionality that are needed. But if you say the device must be OmniAir certified, then again, that brings in all the standard industry standards and specifications without listing everything in detail. Bench testing usually includes confirming device configuration and operation, general functionality, as well as integration with other devices such as the ECLA, threat signal controllers. Again, a certified device brings in, has already been tested against industry standards. So bench testing then can focus on configuration and integration. Similarly with field testing. So field testing includes confirming device operation, integration with other devices in the field, as well as application functions. Well, a certified device lets the system deployer focus on testing, integration, and application. And then finally, from an operation and maintenance standpoint, so once the system is in operation mode, we need to be able to monitor the roadside units and other roadside devices. And possibly change configurations or update messages to be broadcast. And a single operation and management system or maintenance system supporting industry standards, in this case, NTCAP 1218, can configure, monitor, and update certified devices from multiple manufacturers. So you got one system that you can manage all of the devices from. So that's it from my end. So hopefully you guys have a better appreciation of how certified devices can influence the deployment process. And back to you.
Thank you so much, Frank. We appreciate your presentation. Nick, if I can have you on screen, please. All right, next we have Nick to wrap us up and tie things together.
All right, thanks everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit about why certification is important to IOOs, but I also want to walk through what certification is in respect to what it means to an IOO from a Drive Ohio perspective. So, first slide here, what does it mean and why is it important? Well, RSU certification currently includes, at a really high level, radio level testing, security level testing, and then testing around the CTI 4001 standard. The reason why it's focused on the CTI 4001 standard is because that is the standard that IOs had assistance and had involvement in developing. So it really keens in and really includes some of those important aspects to IOOs and make sure that those functionality are included in the needs and requirements. Talking about the radio layer, it ensures that all the devices can communicate regardless of manufacturer. There's new radio configurations coming out and being discussed. Omniair members have the most detailed information regarding those standards, thus provide considerable input and detail into the creation of Omniair test cases. And as those test cases get created and then vetted out at Omniair Plugfests, those then are able to be, as we get devices that are capable of meeting those test cases, that's when they start getting incorporated into the certification program. We have the security layer, the 1609.2 requirements for the use of security certificates. It certifies that the structure of the security protocol data unit, the SPDU, is in the correct format. And that certifies that the RSU will respond appropriately when it receives messages with good or bad certificates. So if it's a bad certificate, we don't want it just to process like we would normally with a good certificate. We want the RSU to be able to make that determination and take the appropriate action. With the 1609.2.1 is the enrollment of RSUs and OBUs. It enables the ability to manage security certificates. And when I say manage, looking at the certificate or credential certificate revocation list, the CRL, and making sure that we are enabling the abilities for that CRL. We also look at the 1609.3 requirements for networking services. Networking services really enable the use of an SCMS, which then enables trust. It certifies that devices are capable of transmitting WSAs and WSMs also, and that PSIDs are able to be configured and broadcast correctly. And those are important when you start getting into application-specific messages. And then, largely we start looking at the CTI 4001 and all of the different sections and requirements within that standard. Hardware and environmental are covered in the 779 test case document that Randy covered earlier. It certifies that the devices that we purchase as IOOs have longevity from the elements and they can withstand the environmental conditions that they're installed. So they're not going to corrode away. They're not going to get filled with water. They're going to be able to handle the vibrations and all of those other conditions that may be present in those environments that we install them in. It also covers communication. It's aligned with the NTCIP 1218 requirements found in CTI 4001. So a lot of times people will say that the 785 document is NTCIP 1218 focused. It is focused, but with a caveat towards the requirements of CTI 4001. And that really makes sure and certifies that the devices are capable of being configured and monitored through the use of NTCIP 1218. That goes for, maintenance activity, configuration, functions, as well as logging, so we can figure out why a problem happened and when it happened, and make sure our system's functioning correctly. And then last is message handling. A large focus on SPAT and MAP in 4001. It certifies that the devices are capable of processing and broadcasting messages. So making sure that it can receive a TSCBM or an NTCIP 1202 message from a controller or a edge device, and then process that into a J2735 formatted message, SPAT message. And it also deals with a little bit of the periodicity and making sure that is able to process those messages within a certain period of time. So for IOs, why is certification important? When we get a certified device, it allows us to have effective use of our funds. IOs are ensuring that they are purchasing a device that meets a base set of standards and has passed third-party testing against those standards. This leads to project time not spent towards development, which is money. Project time equals money. That time that's saved during deployment, it simplifies deployment by not having to have develop functionality that's already required as Omnier certification. So that interoperability piece that Randy and Frank mentioned, that's key in making sure that as we have deployments that have multiple different vendors required, so we can ensure interoperability and make the best use of our funding. Those devices are going to work together. And then it's the initial step for validation. So a lot of times we talk about how do we enable trust to the receivers of our infrastructure messages, the OEMs essentially. They want to make sure that they are receiving accurate information. Yeah. And the first step of that process is Omnier certification, which then leads to initial validation, using the validation tool that's being discussed in the 4501 standard committee, an SAE, and then also long-term monitoring. So that's the last step in continued process for long-term monitoring of our intersections. And if you want a deployment trusted by OEMs, like I said, Omnier certification is the first step. What can you do? First thing is get involved. Join Omnier and help prioritize test cases that are important to you as an IOO. Attend Omnier Plugfest and gain additional insight into the Omnier process so that you're up to speed on what the current standards are, what the current certification releases are, and how those may affect what your ultimate goal is for your deployment. And then also require Omnier certified devices. And I included some draft language here that Drive Ohio uses. It references, C-V2X release 1. I think that's key because just stating that Omnier you're requiring Omnier certified devices. There's a lot of different Omnier certifications out there, so we want to be more specific so that we're not held up in a argument over what certification we're actually referring to. So make sure we have Omnier certified for C-V2X release 1. And then I also reference a letter from Omnier if the entity or the manufacturer does not have certification, they can provide a letter from Omnier stating that they're actively working towards certification and will become certified for that release 1 within 6 months. And that 6 months is sort of key because it allows time for the certification testing to occur and the device to get certified. And it also allows us as IOOs to, if the device can't be certified or isn't certified within that 6 month period, to kind of pivot towards a different approach. We want to make sure that our projects aren't held up just due to device availability and device certification. And then we also, like talked about that pivot, selecting maybe a different vendor. So we want to be as competitive as we can, but also understand that we need to move projects forward, and we can't wait for devices to become certified just because they may be on the low cost side of things. And that's it for me. I'll turn it back over to Berkinda.
Thank you so much, Nick. If I can have all three panelists join me and we can see if there is any questions or any further discussion that you'd like to have before we close this out. Let's see if we have anything on here. Looks like Randy answered a question, but I don't know if it's something you'd like to discuss. It's what information should be provided in user manual and data sheet for C-V2X stack?
So, Berkinda, you have my video shut off, so if you want me to come on board. No, basically what I need to know is in that data sheet or user manual that what C-V2X functionality do you have implemented and what don't you? And we'll go through all the requirements. And if there is a feature that is not implemented and possibly take a deviation to a process, or if it's listed as optional, I know correctly how to put it into the test plan and how to view that. Because there are a lot of optional features that some manufacturers do implement that you want to get credit for in that particular state. Also, Jason asks, how can we get device manufacturers and people better prepared for PlugFest coming in? We're holding this particular webinar as far as the process, because I was getting a lot of inquiries about how to apply for certification. Well, what does it involve? And hopefully this webinar has helped that. We are also looking to plan to hold a webinar on our TCI, which is test control interface. We're looking from a security standpoint. Is there something we can do for the SCMS 6009.2.1 or as a webinar itself to get it people more ready in that perspective? We do have a PlugFest working group that I believe we're holding on an every 2-week cadence led by Aaron Moore this is a collaborative thing. We all work together to bring a successful PlugFest. So we do need all the test equipment stations, test equipment, test laboratories, and that stuff participating for what the capabilities are bringing so the devices can come and get the devices tested. We do want all devices to go through all the steps and try it. Then once you've tried everything, you can come back and focus on other items. I did skip one slide that showed we do have certified folks. Berkinda, if you'd like me to show it, I can show it if you want to, but I did skip it. And I'll share my screen real quick for that.
Perfect. While you're sharing that, I do see a question about recording, and it will be sent out.
Yeah. Okay. So if you see my screen, whoops, that took it across 2 or 3 screens. Sorry about that. But you can see that our latest certification was a Unix module. You can see down below in test specifications what per 751 scope it covered far as test specifications. That also applies to test equipment and other devices. You can see on the left-hand side, we got 3 devices from IT Telecom, 2 OBUs in our RSU that's been certified. You can see Keysight itself has their main test system certified along with their tablet, which doesn't show on this list. We did have Coda Wireless for their RSU just got recently certified, and to the FCC regulatory certificate. And then in the middle, you see our 3 laboratories that really brings us all together and does the testing and produces the test reports. Got TTA out of Korea, we got DECRA out of Spain, and you got TUV out of Taiwan. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Randy. So I do see that there's a question. So Jason Conley, our executive director, has asked, Nick and Frank, each of you chair an Omniair working group. Can you tell us what kind of projects that the technical working group and connected infrastructure RSU working groups are focused on?
Yeah, so I chair the technical working group, and this is really focused on V2X. I mean, Omniair, has tolling working groups as well. But the V2X technical work group really focuses on the test specifications and what are we going to require from devices, and here we get into really kind of the bits and bytes of the standards and capabilities of the devices, and here's where we can go back to the standards development organizations if we have any questions, and things like that. So the majority of the test specifications come out of the technical.
Frank, you faded out there a little bit at the end, so I don't know if you want to adjust your mic.
Oh, sorry. I said I'll let Nick talk about his working group.
Oh, okay. Nick, you're next.
Sure. And maybe mine's sort of a two-parter. So okay. We're right now I lead the Connected Infrastructure RSU working group that falls underneath. It's a sub working group that falls underneath the technical working group, really focused on what are those CTI 4001 test cases, those test cases that that focus on the RSU side of things, the signal controller side of things, those edge processor types of activities and devices. Really looking at what, as an infrastructure owner operator, what the things that we're installing, how can we develop test cases towards those, definitely towards the standards. As we develop those test cases, I think the important aspect is those test cases are then vetted out at the Omniair PlugFest via the test stations, and then based off of how well devices do with those initial test runs, that sort of allows Omniair to have the insight of and they give us it's anonymous information to us as a working group, but they give us the insight as to, are there any improvements that need to be made to those test cases to make sure that they're aligned with what industry standards are. We ultimately want as many manufacturers to be able to pass those tests as possible, but we also want to make sure those tests are still coordinated and well aligned with the industry standards, so that the PlugFest gives us the opportunity to see how well our test cases are developed via the implementation of a test station like a Keysight or a Spirent or a DECRA. And then it also allows the vendors to see what the upcoming test cases may be, and then allows them to see how far along in the process or how far along in the development they are towards those test cases, and if they're already supported or if they need to do a little bit more work. So it's sort of like a twofold with the Omniair PlugFest. Allows us to see where the industry is at according to certification, and allows maybe some new companies and some seasoned companies to see where they're at in the process, and maybe the new companies are farther along than what they thought they were, and it gives them the opportunity to kind of get that insight and gain that confidence.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, let me see if we have any additional questions. I do not see any. Is there anything further? We have a couple minutes. Is there anything you all would like to talk about as a group before I go ahead and wrap up with some events? Okay. Well, thank you all for participating. Before I let everyone go, I'd love to share a little bit about what we have upcoming. All right, so next up we have our August monthly membership meeting. This is going to be a great one. We have Markel Moffitt from CDM Smith, who is one of our key leaders in the REC working group, hosting a presentation along with Mindy Kimura from the Hawaii Department of Transportation. So if you'd like to join us for that, you can go ahead and click the QR code here. I will also be sending this out in the replay notes, so don't worry if you don't see it there. You do not have to be a member to join us for this monthly membership meeting, so feel free to go ahead and sign up and have your team sign up as well. Also, we have our San Diego Plug Fest. I know Randy mentioned this, and this is a lot about Plug Fest preparation. So that Plug Fest is coming up very soon. I know it's winter in some places, but I don't think it's going to be winter here. As you guys know, I'm in Southern California. We've got some great weather. The end of October is beautiful here. So this is a Plug Fest for that reason, and also because it's going to be a lot of great information that you don't want to miss. So we do have our early bird registration that's happening right now. The Plug Fest is going to be hosted from October 28th through November 1st. I see something coming in. Okay. Thank you so much for the kudos and the Q&A, guys. I don't have a slide for it, but I do want to say that we also have a couple other webinars coming up. As Randy mentioned, we will be doing a TCI version 3, I believe, webinar that is not on the calendar yet, but look for that. I believe that's coming like mid-September, early October. On the calendar that you can find on LinkedIn later today will be our multi-protocol tooling webinar. That's going to be hosted on September 4th, so just after that US holiday. And I believe we have another coming up in early October, but keep an eye out. We'll have some that are lined up leading up towards Plug Fest. Frank, Nick, Randy, thank you so much for your time. All of our members and guests, we thank you so much. We will see you later this month at our monthly membership meeting. Have a great day, everybody.